You've probably seen the warning. It shows up in training articles, in forum threads, in the confident advice of people who clearly feel very strongly about it. Don't let your dog sleep in your bed. It's bad for your authority. It'll mess up your sleep. It's a hygiene problem. Some version of this has been circulating for decades, and if you're watching this, there's a good chance you're doing it anyway, or thinking about it, or you did it once, and you've been carrying a low-grade guilt about it ever since. Hi, I'm Sam. Sesame sleeps at the foot of my bed. She's my young poodle, about 1.5 years, and as I'm putting this together, she's curled up right where she always is. She claimed that spot roughly 2 weeks after I brought her home, walked to the foot of the mattress, turned in 3 circles, lay down, and that was apparently that. I did some reading. I did some more reading. What I found was not what I'd been led to expect. Today we're going through the 3 biggest claims you've heard about letting your dog sleep in your bed, plus one very real exception you actually need to pay attention to. I'm going to tell you what the research says about each one. Not what your neighbor said, not what an old training manual said, the actual studies. There's one in particular I want you to carry with you. Here's what most people don't know about the dominance argument. The idea that letting your dog up on the bed sends the wrong message, that you're confusing the hierarchy, that your dog will think they're in charge, that your training will unravel. This idea has a specific origin. It comes from mid-20th century wolf research. Scientists observed captive wolf packs and built a framework around what they called alpha behavior, a top animal, a rigid pecking order, constant negotiation for rank. The problem is, that framework was largely wrong even for wolves. L. David Mech, one of the researchers whose early work helped build the alpha wolf model, spent decades of subsequent fieldwork walking it back. Wild wolf packs, he found, are mostly just family units. The animals at the top are usually the breeding parents. There isn't a rigid, constantly contested hierarchy. There's a family. And domestic dogs are not wolves. They share a common ancestor, but they diverged thousands of years ago, shaped specifically by human selection to cooperate with us, to read us, to want to be near us. The American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior has a formal position statement explicitly rejecting dominance theory for dog behavior. By extension, that means the old fear about a dog claiming your bed as a power move has no scientific backing. It's not about pack order. It's not about your authority. It's not about hierarchy at all. It's about a model that wasn't right for wolves and was never right for dogs. I half believed this one myself for a while. Most of us did. It was everywhere. But a well-trained, well-adjusted dog who sleeps in your bed is still a well-trained, well-adjusted dog. The bedroom door doesn't change that. Stay with me here, because the next claim is more complicated, and I want to be honest about the complicated part of it. Your dog will ruin your sleep. This one is more reasonable than the dominance claim, and I'm not going to dismiss it. But the data is more interesting than the warning suggests. Researchers at the Center for Sleep Medicine at the Mayo Clinic have published work looking at pet owners and their sleep quality. What comes up most in their findings? Most people who have their dog in the bedroom don't report significant disruption. The distinction that mattered was where the dog was. A dog on the bed was rated as somewhat more disruptive than a dog in the room, but sleeping on their own surface. Not dramatically so, but the difference was real. Research out of Canisius College looked at a group of women and their sleep quality with different bedmates. Dogs were rated as less disruptive than cats, less disruptive than human partners, too. They generally settle when you settle. They don't reorganize the covers at 2 in the morning with the same commitment a cat or a restless person might. I want to be honest about something, though. These studies rely on self-reported data. If your dog needs half an hour to circle before settling, or wakes at 5 every morning because the world has begun again, your actual nights may not match the averages. The research doesn't override your experience. What it does tell you is that dogs automatically ruin sleep is not the universal fact it gets treated as. The third big claim sounds the most alarming and turns out to be the most manageable. Dogs are a health hazard in the bedroom. You'll get sick. Here's the actual picture. There is such a thing as zoonotic disease. That's the term for illnesses that can transfer between animals and humans. Dogs can carry pathogens that occasionally make their way to people, and I'm not going to wave that away. But the CDC and the AVMA both indicate that for healthy adults living with healthy, vaccinated, and regularly dewormed dogs, the risk of systemic transmission through normal household contact, including co-sleeping, is very low. Yes, even with preventatives, an opportunistic tick or flea can hitch a ride on their fur and end up in your sheets. You will definitely be washing your bedding more often. But documented cases of serious illness from pet transmission in people with healthy immune systems are real, yet rare, where that risk calculation genuinely changes. If someone in your household is immunocompromised, going through cancer treatment, managing certain autoimmune conditions, or in the early months of life, I'm not a vet and I'm not a doctor, and I am not going to tell you how to weigh a medical risk for your specific family. That is a conversation for your physician and your veterinarian. But if that's not your situation, if you and your dog are both in good health, current on vaccines and routine parasite prevention, the biohazard sleeping at your feet framing does not hold up. A dog who is up to date on vaccines, on flea and tick control, seen by a vet once or twice a year, that dog is not a hygiene crisis. It's just a dog. Here's the part I want to be honest about, and I'm in this one too. I've spent several minutes making the case that most of the fears around dogs in bed don't hold up. I believe that. But a complete picture means saying something about when the answer is genuinely different. For some dogs, particularly dogs who already carry significant anxiety about being apart from you, bed sharing can create a feedback loop. Not because they're becoming dominant, because for a dog who is already struggling, the closeness of the bed raises the baseline, and every absence gets harder against it. For those dogs, a behaviorist might work on building independence differently. That is a real consideration for a real number of dogs. I used to think Sesame's nighttime Velcro behavior was just cute, and mostly it is. She came from a stable home, she's social, she's fine. But I've read enough since then to understand that what works for her temperament isn't the right answer for every dog, especially a dog with a harder history, or one where you're already seeing signs of genuine distress when you leave. So, the science doesn't say bed sharing is bad for dogs across the board. What it says is that what's right for your dog depends on your dog's individual temperament, behavioral history, and needs. If you're seeing real distress when you're apart, not just preference, but genuine distress, that's worth a conversation with your vet or a certified animal behaviorist. The answer isn't don't let them in. The answer is know your dog. This is the one I keep coming back to. The warnings you've heard about dogs in bed are relatively recent. The habit itself is not. Archaeological evidence, including a burial site in what is now Germany, dating to around 14,000 years ago, shows humans and dogs buried together, overlapping. The relationship between our two species is that old. The nighttime part of it may be that old too. In 2015, researchers at Azabu University in Japan published a study in the journal Science. They found that our daytime interactions, like simply gazing at your dog and making eye contact, trigger the release of oxytocin in both of you. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone, the same one that rises between a parent and an infant. And at night, when the house goes quiet and your dog settles at your feet, that proximity is likely an extension of that deeply rooted bond. Even if you're both fast asleep, something in both of you is running a program that is very, very old. The pack is together. Everyone is accounted for. Rest, I don't have a clean way to say what that is. Exactly. I don't know what Sesame experiences when she's asleep at the foot of my bed. But I know what I experience, and I know what the science says, which is this. There is nothing in the peer-reviewed literature that says letting your dog sleep in your bed makes you a worse owner. Nothing that says it creates behavior problems in well-adjusted dogs. Nothing that says it will harm your health if your dog is healthy and your household is healthy. What the research says is that the fears are manageable, the dominance warnings are outdated, and the habit of a dog sleeping near the people it loves, that goes back 14,000 years. We didn't invent it. We just kept it. If that's you, if you let them up and never really looked back, you can stop feeling guilty about it. You came to this video because you heard the warnings, maybe more than once. And maybe you let your dog up anyway, And some part of you has been waiting for someone to tell you whether that was okay. I think it's okay. I think the science is on your side. If your dog is healthy, your household is healthy, and the arrangement is working for both of you. So, does your dog sleep in your bed? I want to know what your nights actually look like. Whether you're firmly team yes, firmly team separate spaces, or somewhere in the middle and still figuring it out. I read everyone, every single one. Until next time, give them a scratch behind the ears from me.